Greetings, Patrick here, and welcome to Dollar Theater. Dollar Theater is a ongoing series starred by good friend Hobbs Horror, in which we watch and review movies that we have acquired underneath a $1.25 threshold. Wow. So, last week we did Eat Below. Man, that's a great movie. Um, I really enjoyed it. Today, I decided to venture into, once again, to my buddy Catfish, who left me a ton of movies. Decided to venture into one of his folders once again, and I thought we'd talk about a movie that really doesn't really get talked about a lot, which is a little bit surprising, especially after I watched it. It came out in 2001, and it is the live action version of Josie and the Pussycats. Josie and the Pussycats. Now I remember when this movie came out. I definitely do, and I do seem to remember that it was a little bumpy when it got released. It really didn't do that well, and but as time has gone by, it has seemed to be that the film has gotten a little bit more love. Um, of course, Josie and the Pussycats is part of the Archie world. It was created by Don DeCarlo, and Josie was actually named after his wife. And Don DeCarlo also has a tie with the MCU, as he and Stan Lee actually got together and created a comic strip called Willie Lumpkin. So, but Don decided, he was looking for work, so he decided to take Josie and try to make a syndicated newspaper strip, comic out of her. It didn't necessarily work out then, but it eventually, he went to Archie Comics, and the character of Josie was created in the early 60s and has been going on ever since. They have made cartoon series out of it, including Josie and the Pussycats Go to Space, completely ruining the fact that they actually, Josie and the Pussycats actually beat Jason to space. They beat leprechauns to space. So, the cartoon was very popular. It came out in Hanna-Barbera. And so there's always been undercurrent of Josie being popular. In fact, so much so that the character was actually in the band, was incorporated into the Riverdale TV series. And then the character of Josie spun off from there and went on to do the Katie Keene series that aired for a short while on the CW. But our version is 2001. It was released by Universal MGM, and it starred Rachael Leigh Cook as Josie, Rosario Dawson, then actually Rosanna Dawson in the credits. Rosario Dawson played Val, who played bass, and Tara Reid played Melody Valentine, which is the drummer. Josie, like I said, played by Rachael Cook. The vocalist for her, who did the singing for her, was Kay Hanley, who played in a band called Letters to Cleo. So this is a really fun looking movie, and it plays out to be very fun. Basically, and to tell you the truth, this movie had a lot more hits for it. Had a lot more to say about it than a lot of people realize. I think the filmmakers were probably just a little bit too smart for their own good, in the fact that they did a lot of jokes that flew over the general public's head. But a lot of what they're trying to say is true. The movie opens up and we see this boy band called The Jor, and they could be Backstreet Boys or NSYNC at that time, both very popular. And so The Jor was basically a parody of that, and they came out there and did their thing, singing in front of a bunch of screaming girls, and then got on a plane, and they find out that something's weird going on with their music, which causes their manager, Wyatt, to like, uh-oh. So Wyatt and the pilot of the plane, they jump out of the plane and to leave the plane to, presumably not do so well. They parachute out onto the outskirts of Riverdale, and Wyatt is told to find another band. And then we find, and that's what he does. He finds Josie and the Pussycats, who we get introduced to singing three little words, and it's a really rocking first, scene of Josie. And it looks like maybe they're playing at a club or a bar or what have you, but they're actually playing in a bowling alley, uh, to nobody. Uh, and but they're optimistic. They're optimistic, even though it was a little bit of a bummer of a gig. They're still, they're still full of energy, and so Josie says, well, in order for us to be rock stars, we have to do something. So they go down to downtown Riverdale, and it looks like they're going to play down there. And then they get discovered by Wyatt, and the world changes really, really fast. I mean, really fast. In a week, they go from being nobodies to being all over the place. But why is that? How is that happening? Well, it turns out that Wyatt, along with his boss Fiona, who owns Mega Records, um, they are putting in subliminal messages in music. So whenever anybody buys music and they play it, they're getting this messages and telling them to spend. Since most of the money that's coming from our kids, they're the ones they're aiming for. So that's what they're going. That's what happens. So every time they hear music from one of their favorite artists, not only are they hearing the songs, but getting subliminal messages. And then when the bands find out about it, they end up dying in a plane crash or drug overdose, and you can tell which ones they are because MTV will run or VHS will run behind the music. It's sort of salty in a way, very subversive actually, for them to come up with that. Because there's a lot of bands that's what happens to, they end up passing out. Something disastrous happens and they ended up getting one of those specials. Um, of course, the usual, the story plot, a little bit dry, a little bit cliched. First thing that White does is that instead of the Pussycats as they're known, suddenly become Josie and the Pussycats. And of course, this affects Val, and she's like trying to point out that it's not Josie and the Pussycats, it's just the Pussycats. And Wyatt says, well, this is how it works. This is, more people buy music with the word "and" in it. So if you want a success, you got to have an "and" in your band name. Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, that sort of thing. Uh, and then she points out that, well, what about bands like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones? And then of course Wyatt, comes up with a smarmy answer. Uh, so uh, helped by their management team, which was really cool to see. They brought the Cabots into the mix. Well, the Cabots were they were the managers of the band. Now, in the comic book, they were sort of like rivals, including Alexandria. She is always trying to get Alan M., who's also in this film. And they brought a lot of comic elements into the movie itself. I It probably would have helped out a little bit, especially being this, like, I'm sure they were hoping for the best to do another movie. So I look at this movie sort of like an origin movie. Like, okay, like I didn't know anything about. I didn't know that much about Josie the Pussycats, other than they were in Archie's. Um, but I didn't know the background of the Cabots. I didn't know the background of Alexandria or Alexander. I didn't know that. I mean, as far as, because in the comic books they were rivals. I didn't know that they were the management of the band now. So I guess they had matured the characters a little bit. Even though they're supposed to be eternally 16 or 17 in the comics, in a movie, you really can't get away with that too much. Uh, of course, then we see that the division of the band, and Wyatt gives Josie music and basically gets her to, forget her friends. He then attempts to have Val and Val and Melody killed by a fake Carson Daly or brainwashed Carson Daly, either one, right? Uh, so basically, what happens is they find out what's going on. Uh, Fiona, the owner of Mega Records, and Wyatt are trying to do the subliminal messaging. They're going to try to do it through this new set of cat ears, listening devices that you can only hear Josie's concert if you buy these specially made earphones, and of course that's their big world. That's their big plan to take, to do the massive subliminal messaging. The bad guys get stopped. The good guys win. Even the bad guys get their happy ending. After all, it is a kids, based on the kids cartoon, um, um, and and everybody comes out with a happy ending. Josie and of course Val and Melody make up, and they go out there and they rock it out. All right, so let's talk a little bit. Like I have to sit there and say that I like this movie. I really did. I thought there was a lot of cleverness in what they had to say, starting from the first with Du Jour, the cobbled together, cookie cutter band, because that's how a lot of bands are. They always, even today, you got bands that suddenly pop out of nowhere, and you go like, who are they? And a lot of times they're just the creation of a record company. Not so much today as they were back when this movie was made. I don't think there's too many cookie cutters, though. You do get to see a lot of people. You do see country music still doing that, coming up all these people out of the woodwork and shoving them down our, basically shoving them down our ears. They haven't really done anything to deserve it. They just, sort of like those singing competitions that get handed out contracts. They haven't done much to deserve it, and the only reason why they're famous is because of the public. Same as far as being told this, you should vote, vote, vote. It's sort of subliminal in that way as well. Um, we're being told to vote for singers that maybe necessarily are not that good, and plenty of times on those shows, that's what we get. Um, so I thought this movie was way ahead of its time in that regard, as far as that goes. The cast was really good. The cast was really good. I thought it was. I thought Rachel Lee Cook, Tara Reid. This is actually my favorite Tara Reid movie. Wow, she was so. Oh my gosh, Tara Reid should have been. She should have been so much more than what than her career turned out to be. She really should have been. She was just so damn cute. Rosario Dawson was amazing as well. Gosh, she was young back here. Wow, and she looked so young, and then later on, now we look at her and she's a big star and definitely deserves it. And of course, Rachel Lee Cook. Back then, this is her. I wouldn't necessarily say it was the height of her popularity per se, because I think she chose her direction, whether to be popular or not. But she really was great as Josie and really sparkled on the screen. You had Missy Pyle. She was also very good. You also had Paulo Costanzo. They played the Cabots. Alan Cumming played Wyatt. Always awesome. Always great. Parker Posey played Fiona. And I'm still struggling with watching a Parker Posey performance. Sometimes she's really good, and then sometimes she's just. I just don't understand. I just don't get it why she seems to be clocked out half the time during her performances. But she did okay here. She did okay here. Of course, the juror was really fun too, and that featured Breckenmeyer, Seth Green, and Turk, Donald Faison, along with Alexander Martin. They were perfect as the juror. That was hilarious. The opening scenes for Josie and the Pussycats is funny as hell. Um, and you know the product placement, the directors of the movie, they commented about that. They commented that was written and directed by Deborah Kaplan and Harry Alfont. They mentioned that the product placement in the movie, which was tremendous, they weren't paid for any of that when they filmed the movie. I sure as hope as hell they got paid afterwards because there's a lot of companies that benefited from their product placement. There and they did it all really with respect, but it was still fun. It was still fun. Uh, all right. With anything more about Josie about this movie, I wish it could have got a sequel. I definitely think it deserved a sequel. I don't know why it didn't work out so well. The budget was like $40 million, but it only made $15 million back. So I think a lot of it had to do with probably the rest of the world really didn't know who Josie and the Pussycats was. There just wasn't any reason why anybody internationally would be all over it. And of course here, basically they're a little early. If this movie had been done after the TV series Riverdale, it might have. But of course, as Riverdale was played serious, it would have been a little bit confusing. But I still think that with the right lineup, I think they could have got away with doing a Josie and the Pussycats movie after Riverdale that would have did well. It had promise. Um, uh, I like what they did with Josie and the Pussycats in the TV series as well. They changed their whole attitude and their ethnicity. Ethnicity. Um, and I was all right with that. I thought they were outstanding. I really liked it. I liked how Josie was portrayed in the series. All right, that is it for my 2 cents on Josie and the Pussycats. Fun movie. If you see it out there, I definitely pick it up. I definitely think people will have a really fun time with it. The music's catchy, good lyrics, good vocals, even though they're not Rachael Leigh Cook's, but still, like the director said, that the girls, they could play. They weren't expert per se, but if you watch where their hand movements is, which is what most people do when they watch movies with music, watch the hand placement. You can always tell when someone's, if you want to know how someone's not playing a guitar, watch their hand movement or watch a Corey Feldman video. But Tara Reid played drums, and Rosario Dawson, yeah, she plucked her bass, and Rachael Cook definitely played her guitar. They mentioned that they weren't plugged in per se, but I mean, if they did, it'd probably be passable. All right. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. You can get this probably just about anywhere: eBay, Walmart, Amazon. Still pretty popular out there. I still see it out in the wild, so it's still out there. So that's it for this edition of Dollar Theater. Ooh, 20 minutes on Josie and the Pussycats. Pretty awesome. If you're new to the channel, consider hitting the sub button and hit the like button and drop a comment down below. Tell me about your favorite Archie character. If you've seen Josie and the Pussycats, drop a comment about that. Drop a comment about anything, and we'll get back to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. We're starting something new starting next week. For the next 3 weeks after you hear this review or watch this review, we're doing something different. All right. Talk to you soon. Peace.